very much, everyone, today. It's a pleasure to be here, but lovely as well. As I always say, physios very much work as part of a team, and as a person, we need our army around us. So that's the most important thing. When I think of the word menopause, I suppose all I can keep thinking is change, 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 change. And when I looked today, and I suppose I have pictures up of my family, these are all the women in my life, and we've all done change. So every person in this room is well equipped to deal with change, and we're super at dealing with the change. So my daughter Chloe is 8. She's at the stage where she's asking me, what are periods? When do you get periods? And thankfully, unlike our keynote speaker, I'm talking to her about it. I'm telling her. I talk about penises. I talk about parts of the body, and we have that conversation. I myself have just gone through the biggest change. I've had 2 children. I'm 42. I'm starting to enter that perimenopausal change. And then you have my mum who's coming out of it. She's gone through it probably with a little bit more support than what my granny, who is 92, still in this world, and is dealing with the consequences of change and probably didn't speak about it. And as we said, wore a pad, dragged things around and just got on with it and put up and shut up. So today I'm here to talk about the role of physiotherapy, and I suppose we want to get up, get moving, get active. And the more we are, the better we can be within our health. So we know menopause is that change, that ovaries no longer produce estrogen, and the more, as everyone has spoken today, the importance about the role of estrogen. And we go through these changes. Some people only recognise symptoms when they have them, but really we should be starting to look at those simple and subtle changes and seeking assistance when we start to notice the change. So from a really important thing is our bones. Them bones need calcium, but they also need us to get up and get active and get moving. And I know myself, I was really fit and active. I was up and running, doing different things. Then you come along to college, you kind of pull out a little bit, you party more, you sleep more. Then you go on to have your children, and suddenly now you're toddling around, running after children. You're now mum, driving them here, driving them there, but you're less active, less mobile. But this is the time now when our bodies are starting to change, and we need to get up and we need to get moving. So really we need to think that our bones are reactive tissue. They remold, they remodel, they react to our muscles pulling off them. And we know that before our periods start to have our final change, that's the point where we lose significant amount of our bone density. So we need to think about getting movement. And physiotherapists are movement experts. We're desperate. My husband's always given out to me. I'm sitting in a restaurant and a cafe. I'm like, something's wrong with them. They're not sitting properly. We are trained to look and get to moving correctly. We look at people's postures. We have exercise ideas. There's ways around everything. It doesn't just have to be out in a gym, because I hate the gym myself, but there's ways around it. So it's really important to think about how can we get moving, get active. And with getting moving, get active, we not only improve our mental health, we improve our physical being, but also our bone health. So there are 3 main components of exercise from a bone health point of view. So resistance training. So get out, get active, seek out maybe your chartered physiotherapist who teaches Pilates, who understands the medical conditions, and they'll give you exercises or load-bearing exercises that are appropriate. When we use our muscles, we pull on bones, and that promotes bone change and bone strength. We need to get up on our feet, get loading those bones, doing classes or fun things like dancing. It doesn't have to be gym related, where we improve our speed, endurance and our strength. And it doesn't matter what age we're at. Even my 92-year-old granny, I need to get her moving. I need to get her, because I don't want her falling and I don't want her to fracture her hip. The outcomes when we fracture is the less likely that we have a high rate of morbidity associated with it. And then we need to look at our balance. So all of this, there's plenty of options out there for us to get out and get active. But what happens then as we start to see changes within our hormonal structure is we see that estrogen affects other areas. And sometimes we can't do the things we want to do by getting up and getting active because of these subtle changes. So we think of the pelvic floor and the whole pelvic health area. So the vagina, the vulva, the urethra, the bladder and the pelvic floor all change. Tissues become thinner, they become less elastic, less flexible. There's dryness down there, they become irritated. Ligaments and muscles are less supportive. Things start to drop down or they droop. A rise in the pH and the vaginal area changes and becomes less acidic. And our bacteria and our health microbiome changes. And all of these things impact our well-being and our function. And as a result of those changes, for example, our pH and our gut microbiome, we start to experience maybe recurrent UTIs. This too, which we forget sometimes, can be linked with the bowel, and we might be seeping from our back passage, but God forbid we'd ever mention to anybody that we could actually have bowel issues, bad enough talking about our bladder or our leaking issues to the front. Or we might not be emptying our bladder properly. Women tend to rush, dash, run. We never sit there. We give out about the men sitting on the toilet for the 10 minutes while they read their newspaper, when in fact sometimes we need to empty things better, take a little bit more time. When our muscles start to function less, our trampoline doesn't work as well. It can't bounce. So sometimes we don't have the support to our bowel or bladder or the organs around it. And we can present with symptoms, which I'll talk about later, of loss of control around our bladder, urgency, like people have talked this morning. We can have lack of support, that dragging something around with you, feeling something coming down, that heaviness. And then we can have those symptoms that impact our sexual health, which is vaginal dryness, but that then makes us feel painful. And when we feel painful, we grip. When we grip our muscles, we tighten, and that then becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy of pain or discomfort. So how do we know we actually have symptoms? Because women are great at ignoring a lot of our symptoms, and these are just a few of the kind of common things that people might come in and talk to me about. And these are questions we will ask, because very often people won't actually, they might go, well, I actually went to my GP and mentioned a few of these, but we probe further, and in fact you realise actually they have a lot more symptoms than what actually you thought. So do I cough, sneeze, leak when I'm maybe dancing at a wedding? Do I empty my bladder fully? Am I constantly looking where the toilet is? Do I have pain with intercourse? Is it pain at the start? Is it dryness? Is it discomfort? Have I lost control of my bladder when I'm having intercourse? Do my bowels empty properly? Do I lose control of my bowels? I'm now trying to get out and get active, but actually it's the urge is stopping me. Am I running? And I have patients telling me I've pulled into a ditch and gone to the toilet because their bowel control is not there. Do I feel something coming down? Do I feel this dragging sensation? Do I have a prolapse? Do I feel a bulge? Is that putting me off maybe interacting either in sport or even in intimacy? So there are lots of different symptoms out there. So the most important thing is actually go and seek help. On average, it takes women about 9 years before they actually go and talk, which is awful. We'll probably talk a little bit more about it to our friends now, but even I suppose out of my own friends, how many will go and seek help? You'd wonder. They always do it. We're last on the list. There's other things ahead of us, but really we need to start prioritising ourselves and protecting ourselves and investing in ourselves to go forward. People feel shy and embarrassed, so I think people are better at talking about their bladder symptoms, but on a Friday I work in a colorectal clinic and people are coming in and they are mortified and they are not talking about their bowel symptoms. So we just need to embrace it. We've heard it all before. A bum is a bum. We've wiped plenty of them when we were minding you as babies, and we all have them, so we just need to talk. Women alter their lifestyle. So how many people have stopped going to the gym, stopped exercising, and stopped doing those load-bearing exercises that are really important for keeping our weight, for maintaining our mental health, for maintaining our activity. So the most important thing is go out and seek. There are lots of women's health area physiotherapists out there, and go and make an appointment. You don't necessarily need to be linked. Sometimes in the hospitals, yes, through consultant clinics, but there's lots of us out there where you can ring and book an appointment and ask for help. So what I just thought, I suppose a lot of people kind of go, what do you actually do in your day? So what does a women's health physiotherapist do? We'll bring you in, we'll chat to you, we'll listen to your story, we'll get letters and information, we'll pull it all together. We'll often look at an assessment. So we'll look at the pelvic floor area, we'll observe the area, we'll feel what are your muscles doing. Can you contract your muscles? Are they too tight? Are you able to release your muscles? We'll pull all that information together and we'll take that and we'll probably give you a title for what your problem is called, or we'll give you exercises and advice, and we'll come up with a plan tailored for you. I can guarantee you, if all of you came to see me tomorrow, we'll all have a slightly different plan, because not one of us is the exact same and everyone's story is slightly different. But the important thing we do share is that 1 in 3 women can suffer with pelvic floor dysfunction, and we do need to do that because it impacts significantly on our quality of life, which impacts then on us being able to address symptoms of menopause and getting active and getting movement. So just to talk through from a bladder point of view, if you've stress urinary incontinence, so that's where you cough, sneeze, maybe run, jump and leak, we'll look at your pelvic floor. We'll give you advice regarding fluids. We'll talk about tricks that we say, squeeze as you sneeze. We'll talk about local estrogen, getting your GP maybe to prescribe it for you. We'll look at continence aids such as pessaries or Contams or Incress or the EVB shorts, which we have Yvonne here today. We'll look at stimulation units to build up the strength. So there's lots of things that we'll do, but we can help and we assess people for what they need. If your bladder is overactive, we'll talk about bladder drills. We'll look about how do you empty, how are your muscles functioning, and lots of different tricks like that. From a bowel point of view, we'll look at diet, fluids advice, we'll look at your muscles as well. We'll look at suppression techniques, urge techniques, and also things like if we need to step up about helping people to empty their bowel properly, or even devices that can, like anal plugs, to let you go for a walk so you don't feel like you're seeping from your back passage. If you've problems with getting stool out or you've pain or discomfort, we'll talk about how to go to the toilet properly. And it's amazing, I spend my day teaching people how to sit in a toilet, how to push properly, because again, women are back in bad habits again, and we pick up habits as we go through. But it doesn't matter what age you are, we can all relearn these good habits and get going. From a sexual function point of view, what does a physiotherapist do? So people come to us and they experience pelvic pain. They're experiencing pain in the vaginal areas associated maybe with vaginal dryness. They're on their estrogen, but we need to work on those muscles. And just like tight muscles in your neck, we will talk about releasing, and we'll do manual. Physiotherapists can work on these muscles. We incorporate a lot of breathing work because we've shown that if we breathe correctly into our lower tummy and our diaphragm, our pelvic floor can release. We'll talk about lubrication, as Aoife mentioned, with silk and yes. We can use adjuncts like vaginal dilators, depending on need, local estrogen, and then looking at normalising the tone around the muscle. So there's plenty of physiotherapists can help you with all of this. With prolapse, that's where we feel a dragging, a sensation of something coming down. We'll support the pelvic floor. We'll look at our exercise technique, make sure we're lifting correctly on a day-to-day basis, that we're breathing well, that we're using good defecation dynamics. We're using our local estrogen, and support then on exercise to keep you active, because the important thing is we want to keep people moving and keep them going, not stop and finish what they're doing. There's lots of resources out there. There's fantastic guidelines now in Ireland. NWIP, which is the National Women and Infants Health Programme, they've devised guidelines and they've recommended that a minimum of 16 weeks conservative physiotherapy treatment where you get an individualised personal programme for yourself. And 80% of people should do well with conservative treatment alone rather than straight to the surgical process. So always bear that in mind. If you have a problem, seek out. There's lots of resources on Louise's website. I've put up a whole list of different resources. So the most important message from today is book your appointment with your chartered physiotherapist. If in doubt, just get help. There's lots out there that we can help, and don't just put up and shut up, because we want you out there, get moving and get active. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.